get flat. Every posse get flat. Oh, that might be too loud. Every posse get flat. Let's fade that on out. Good morning, everyone. This is Bro Diallo. Bro Diallo broadcast on Q4 Radio. What is it? You can catch. I just saw this on the website. You can now catch Q4 Radio on all streaming platforms. Because every morning y'all hear me talk about the TuneIn app, but Apple, wherever they stream broadcasts across all applications, you can now find Q4, and of course you can go to q4.org, O-R-O-O-G. You can also find Q4 at again, I don't know. I listen at the website, so I'm just speaking. I'm transmitting rumors here, but you can also. There was a time you could listen on Facebook, but I'm currently suspended on Facebook because I called the police fascist, and I called the police Nazis, and Facebook sent me a message saying that I was spreading hate speech and I wasn't saying go police, yay police, and I'm like, no, bad police, don't be Nazis. So I don't know what's going on Facebook, too heavy, but you can find Q4 Bro Diallo show broadcasting every Monday 7 a.m. remote quarantine pandemic broadcast at q4.org, TuneIn app, and across other platforms. And maybe I need to check that so I can know what I'm talking about. Maybe at the Facebook page. But I'll get back to you on that if they still broadcast on Facebook. And I wish we could shut down all these media monopolies, but that's all. I can't get into that because I got so much to get into. I wasn't here last Monday, so if you heard a rerun, I'm sorry. I had to make an emergency trip. This is my first time leaving the city. Uh-oh. What's that? That's a sound I haven't heard before. This is my first time leaving the city since the quarantine. My family and I have been social distancing, wearing the mask, and following all of the protocols that makes right-wing people and distrustful, so-called conscious people call me a sheep, saying I'm under mind control because I'm following the basic protocols to keep myself and everyone around me safe from the pandemic. Let's see. I'm just adjusting the camera here because when that sunlight come in, I generally, oops, y'all all in my business. I am moving to Wilmington, Delaware. Oh, my son left his blanket. Anyway, I am moving to Wilmington, Delaware. That's what that's what happened when the camera flips on you. But I put the camera on the other side because the sunlight comes in and makes me look like Two-Face from the Batman. Oh, I can do it here. Oh, that's good. That give me a good thing. Anyway, I had to make an emergency trip to deal with some family business, to take care and to resolve some issues with my beloved family. So I wasn't here Monday. And I literally, Sunday night, I was having dinner and I got a call. And so that Monday morning, I had to head to Kansas City. And then I came right back because I couldn't get a hotel. I couldn't settle in. And, I was driving through Trump country. All these placards. I was driving through southern Illinois and I was driving through rural Missouri to get from one city to the next. And then we bypassed St. Louis and went on I-35. So it was rural Illinois and rural Missouri the whole way through. So, if I had a flat tire, redneck country. And I can't say they can call it, well, I don't know if redneck is a slur. White folks like to imitate us and pretend they're oppressed. So they try to term Karen and redneck just like. But anyway, I'm in Trump country. And I wasn't about to get no freaking hotel room or settle in. We literally just kind of stopped at a truck stop for a minute. And no mask. I went into a gas station. And the two cashiers, no mask. Y'all gas station, they got like full on pizzerias and delis and stuff like food prep, fast food in the gas station. And the two guys making the food had no mask on. The customers had no masks. This is Trump. This is free. This is the real America, you know. And I'm like, wow, these cats is wild. They wilding over here. And so I'm like, let me just handle what I gotta do what I gotta do, and get out of Dodge, which is what I did. It was a successful trip. Everyone was safe. We maintained social distancing, and in the instances where we couldn't, we wore simple cloth masks to prevent potential for transmission. You know, it's mad simple. Like the protocols for this pandemic are mad simple, but people are so egocentric. I don't know what you call it, that they can't even. But that's another discussion. You know, and it ain't your fault. If you so psychopathic and egocentric, I mean, menticide and white psychopathy, I mean, I don't even blame you. You're a victim of your own circumstances. So, anyway, I'm back, and I'm happy to be back. I can't wait till I get to the studio. I can't wait till I get back to, um, get back to. I need to put on my headphones because this ain't coming through right. I can't wait till I get back to the studio and get back to a normal schedule and get back to the oppressive, unjust, racist reality that we knew before the quarantine. It's kind of hard to go back to whackness, you know. But I guess things could always get worse. I guess that's the lesson in that. Ah, that's better. But so let's just go back to normal white aggression, domination, and uh, slow roll genocide from this pandemic oppression, racism, slow roll genocide. You know, let's just get back to paying rent to live in hell as opposed to paying rent to be quarantined in hell. Anyway, let's proceed. There's a lot of things I want to talk about. This is a part 3 show that should have been a 2-part show. But I don't know what happened. I think I got caught up. I don't know what distracted me from just finishing this topic and moving on, because there's a lot of things I want to talk about next week. Yeah, that's an intelligent thing to do. That's very professional to talk about what I'm going to talk next week instead of dealing with what I'm dealing with. But next week, maybe. It depends on what y'all do, because y'all drive the show. What the world do, what the masses of the people do. I am a socialist, so I am driven by the collective, and the collective is what drives me. But I want to talk about demagogues and dictators, from the African continent to the black organizations of the African diaspora. Because I mean, these people are plagues, and they stick around for so long because nobody has a reason to take them out, because they're serving the interest of the oppressors. Even if they talk about white devils, even if they talk about bringing down the system, even if they talk about get the white man out of Africa, you'll see functionally they serve the interests of imperialism and oppression. So they stick around. They tend to stick around longer than the actual revolutionaries, and I think it's kind of crazy to me that people are still getting caught up with cult leaders, demagogues, and dictators, and celebrating them and falling for these old school traps. And I always say, if you're gonna fall for a hustle, make it a new hustle. Make it a hustle we ain't seen before. But if you falling for old hustles that are decades old, I mean, shame on you. Fool me once, fool me twice, fool me thrice. So I'm just saying, I might fall. I've fallen for hustles too. I'm not immune. But I can tell you this, bro, Diallo ain't fell for no old hustle. I ain't falling for no Black Jesus, Islam mothership type hustles. If you're gonna trick me, you gotta sit down and work. I'm gonna make you earn that trick. That's all I'm saying. Just, I ain't saying be immune to hustles, that you will be immune to hustles, but I mean, at least come up with a new hustle. I mean, y'all got Busta Rhymes talk this 5%er stuff in 2020. Man, don't he know? Even the original 5% MCs ain't even on that no more. I mean, seriously. Jay Electronica and Busta, like New York rappers are freaking going back to that. I mean, Brand Nubian, and you don't even see, I guess Lord Jamar, I don't know. I can't speak for Lord Jamar. Bless his heart. But I mean, the Poor Righteous Teachers and King Son, I mean, the original 5% MCs ain't even pushing it that hard. They let it marinate. They still live it, I suppose. But I mean, how Busta Rhymes and Jay Electronica. Now, so now these old school MCs are just going back to sell that old played out stuff, man. Can't you? I mean, join Scientology or something, man. Do something new. If you ain't gonna do something revolutionary, you want to be a reactionary. Be a updated reactionary. Don't be a stale, crusty, dusty reactionary. And even forget Busta Rhymes doing that. But the people out here like mind blown, like, oh, peace God. Like y'all minds are being blown. Number one, if you're my age, you should have been like, oh yeah, okay, that stuff. But even like the teenagers, the young people are looking at that like, what, sir? Pardon me, what? Young people ain't falling for it. But y'all old cats, I guess we've been so starved for some substance in hip hop for so long. We'll take whatever we get. Even if it's something crusty, they done went up to the hip hop attic and dusted off something old. Like we ain't had no new books, no new research, no new archaeological findings. Busta Rhymes trying to 5%. Word. I mean, damn. I can't. What's next? We got Africa medallions, free South Africa. I mean, come on. He's a creative genius. That brother, man. But I guess he was like, I can't. Busta Rhymes used to do like high energy club songs. You know, if you really want to party with me. I mean, he's old. And he's like, I can't be doing that. So if you're righteous, he can sit at, like, bring a chair out and sit on the stage. So maybe that's just him trying to preserve his career. I guess. Respect due. I mean, he know better than I do what he doing. But let's go on. Now that we're talking about entertainers, and I promise you, I'm going to get to the topic. But man, if the world would just hold on and slow down a bit, every time I come to talk about what I want to talk about and then talk about the topic that I've researched, y'all go out and do a whole bunch of other stuff. Kevin Hart. Now, I can't really speak on Kevin Hart. The last time I watched anything like a Kevin Hart stand up was when he was like, look at this. Somebody come look at this. I still be walking. I talked all this mess about Busta Rhymes. I walk around saying stale decade-old jokes. I still walk around my house. When I got something, I want my wife to come see something. I'm look at this. Somebody come look at this. So I'm stale. Okay. So I take back everything. I retract everything I just said about 5%. Bus. But anyway, Kevin Hart. I promise you. I mean, that stadium stuff. I see the previews, and Kevin Hart is ubiquitous. He's impossible to escape. So I pick up stuff in my peripheral vision. I hear the background noise of Kevin Hart. And really, I stopped rocking with Kevin Hart when he came out. Now, I'm not lying about this. I'm not making this up. Kevin Hart has a series of old tweets. And he said that dark-skinned women have bad credit. And light-skinned women have good credit. And so when he was called out on this and they were like, yo, Kevin, word? You talking like this? In the modern era? You on some paper bags test? And Kevin Hart said, wait, that was comedy. And he said that comedians can say whatever they want to say. Because we're the people, they got this stuff that the jester is the only person who could tell the truth to the king. So comedians can't be censored because they're the only people left. But what these black comedians don't understand is that's the European context. In the African context, anybody could tell, the elders and the scholars could tell the truth to the king. So in the European context, that off with his head, that was the king, could sleep with your prima nocta, where the king got to sleep with every newlywed, the woman or the man, whatever. All that stuff, don't come to African people with white rationalizations. But I digress. But then, in an interview, and I just confirmed this last night, because like I said, I know very little about Kevin Hart besides, look at this, somebody come look at this. And he was saying, well, it was a series of jokes, and he got mad because people highlight that one black dark-skinned girl's got bad credit. And Kevin Hart literally was like, I said some bad things about black women too. I mean, light-skinned women too. And the bad thing, he said, I was talking about dark-skinned and light-skinned women. But they only say the bad things I said about dark-skinned women. They don't show you the bad things I said about light-skinned women. And so, of course, the interview was like, well, what's some of the things you said about light-skinned women? And I kid you not. He said, the bad thing I said about light-skinned women is that light-skinned women can't take a punch to the face, whereas dark-skinned women can take a punch to the face. He said, you punch a light-skinned woman in the face and she turns all red and you can't hide it. But you can punch a dark-skinned woman all you want and it won't show up on her skin, the bruises and the redness. That was the diss to the light-skinned women. So I'm like, man, and then people say he never apologized. He only explained and rationalized, but he never said I was wrong and I'm sorry. Y'all like to love to give these celebrities this redemption, Malcolm X redemption stuff. Y'all act like every famous black person is had a Malcolm X moment where they went from being Satan Detroit Red to Malcolm X when 99.99% is only one Malcolm X. And y'all disparage and disrespect Malcolm X, pretending like everybody that been a POS all of a sudden becomes a MX. That's why Malcolm is so phenomenal, not because it happens every day. It's a rare phenomenon that somebody can become so fundamentally predatory and reactionary and become revolutionary. It's a rare transformation. That's what makes it so precious. But every time I turn around, and an Uncle Tom, scumbag, predatory black person, and I'm like, screw him. You're like, oh, you can't be Malcolm X used to be in the streets. And if Malcolm had died in the streets, then Malcolm X would have been a scumbag. But hey, I digress. I digress. But anyway, Kevin Hart, and I've followed this over the last couple of days, and now it's in my brain, and the only way to get this nonsense out of my mind is to put it on your mind. Share the burden. Socialism, communalism, sharing burdens. That's all what communalism and community means, literally, to carry a burden together as opposed to individual. Kevin Hart got into it with Tariq Nasheed, because Tariq Nasheed went online and said Kevin Hart is not funny because Kevin Hart was funny when he was black, but since he crossed over to white comedy, he sucks. I don't know, because I haven't seen him since Somebody Come Look at This. Little Big Man or Feel My Pain, I don't know which one that was. I've only watched one Kevin Hart all the way through. When the cat looking out the bowl, get out that bowl. That's what I saw. When his uncle was training him to lift weights, say it with your chest. I ain't seen nothing from Kevin Hart. So I'll take his word for it that Kevin Hart crossed. I hope Kevin Hart, because I know Tariq Nasheed likes the black comedy, dissing dark-skinned women because he dissed black women in general. So Tariq Nasheed liked Kevin Hart better when he was dissing black women as opposed to telling, white jokes. I don't know what kind of white jokes he's telling because I haven't did a stand-up. But I'd say, Kevin Hart, stay over there and tell white folks jokes to white folks. Don't come back to us with that dark-skinned, light-skinned woman stuff. But they started battling back and forth. Now, I don't look at the details, but I know Tariq said he didn't like it, and apparently Kevin Hart has this I don't give no F's given, or I don't give a F. And the way that Kevin Hart demonstrated that he doesn't give a F is by going online and attacking everybody that criticized him. That's like the opposite of not giving an F. He should have named his comedy special, I give every F. I give many Fs. I give at least 5 Fs. I don't know. But here's the thing that's funny to me about all of that. And I use Kevin Hart to segue to Tariq Nasheed. If you look at Tariq and the foundational black Americans, because after looking at that conflict, I was just looking at, like, what did Tariq say? And when I was trying to look at his beefing with Kevin Hart, I went on his page and saw that he's beefing with African people and people from the Caribbean. And he has this one video with a foundational black American where there's this brother who said that he lived in Virginia, but the brother had an accent. So he was like, even if you live in Virginia or if you were born in Virginia or wherever, you're obviously not a foundational black American. And so now I'm looking at this ADOS and foundational Black America and its American descendant of slave. And I've been dissecting and critiquing and trashing the ideology and the agenda. But there's something I just noticed just now after looking at these people for the last couple of years and having them attack me and stalk me. You know, Yvette Carnell friended me and then blocked me and then refriended me and then blocked me and then created a fake account where she pretended to be some dude who disagreed with me and came on there talking. But the way, and I'm like, that's Yvette. And then that account blocked me. So there's been some weirdness. But one thing I noticed is that foundational Black Americans and American descendant of slavery is a group primarily that wants to get reparations for slavery and other atrocities committed against us by white people. But if you look at who they beef with, they mostly beef with Black people from the Caribbean, Black people from the African continent, and Black people from the United States that want to hold unity and coordinate with Black people from the Caribbean and Africa. How are you got an organization that's based on getting justice for slavery and racial aggression, and you're fighting the only people I've never seen them bang on are white people who enslaved you? That's like the Me Too movement, never attacking rapists, never attacking sexual predators, but only fighting other rape victims. Or they classify rape. Well, if you were raped in corporate America versus raped in Hollywood, or if you were sexually harassed, you're not a real rape victim. You know what I'm saying? Well, if you weren't physically penetrated, then you weren't a real rape victim. Like trying to, you start a movement to end sexual predation, and then you have all these specific classification of who was raped, and you try to create a hierarchy or a scale, and then you say, well, women who were sexually harassed and lost positions should get compensation versus women who were molested as young girls, or the young, like that's weird as hell. And then all they do is fight amongst other rape victims about whose rape gets what classification and who should be first in line for rewards. But you never ever see them going head up and banging on no damn rapists or sexual predators. That's what that's like. Because the foundational Black Americans and ADOS, all they can run around is try to create this bubble. This bubble of specific, but even if African people can come and say, well, we were colonized, they do have right now, U.S. corporations and U.S. military has African people in the Niger Delta, in the Congo. If they could come and say, well, you look at the military conflicts, you look at Rwanda, the Rwandan genocide, and it was Israel and South Israel was receiving weapons and fundings and logistics from the United States, and they brought that to Rwanda to facilitate the genocide. Whatever they could demonstrate, say, well, we're oppressed too. Nope, it's not the right kind of oppression. You weren't oppressed or colonized in the right place at the right time, so you can't join our little reindeer games. That's weird as hell. That is weird as hell. I mean, it's just a group of weirdos that every time the ADOS and FBA pop up on my radar, they're attacking. I've never seen the ADOS pop on my radar. ADOS attack IBM. ADOS attacked the U.S. rail system that was built by slavery. ADOS attacked the cotton industry. Every time they're attacking Nigerians, they mad at Obama and Kamala Harris because they're not ADOS and FBA, and they believe that an ADOS FBA person should be the first Black president and the first Black vice president. They mad at everybody, but I can't name one white person. I can name dozens of Black brothers and sisters. Everything from Nigerian authors to South African actors to Kenyan scholars to Caribbean Pan-Africanists that the ADOS has attacked, denounced, tried to, I mean, if it was up to them, they would build that wall. They'd build a seawall to keep the Caribbean and Africa. But I can't name one white person that has come under coordinated attack from ADOS and FBA. They even attack each other more than they attack white people. Weirdos. So that's the rabbit hole. I went from corny jokes and anti-black jokes from Kevin Hart to Tariq's criticism to ADOS reactionary politics. That's the rabbit hole. That's it. No punchline. That ain't the joke. But that's where I ended up. That's why I got to keep my notes. But while we talking about comedians, you know, for maybe my wife and I and our sons, when we settle down for dinner, on some nights we come sit in front of the TV and eat dinner in front of the TV. And I saw that the Chappelle Show was up on Netflix. Now, 20 years ago, I actually bought the DVD of the Chappelle Show. Season 1 DVD. And so I'm like, I ain't about to dig out that DVD, but here it is on Netflix. So I'm watching it, right? And I'm like, wow, this is problematic to say the least. The Chappelle Show was some coonery buffoonery. And I'm like, how? I was woke all those years ago. I lived in New York. Our first son wasn't even born yet. At the time when the Chappelle Show came out, I owned a bookstore. And I was sitting there and talk. Dale Jones and scholars would come in. I'd be sitting there talking pro-black with all these scholars. But I was watching the Chappelle Show. When I watched it, it didn't age well. Real talk. It did not age well. I'm like, wow, this stuff is cringy. There's a lot of coonery. Like, there's one scene where he's walking through the club in slow motion. And a black woman approaches him and he literally mushes her face away. And then there's two white women in front of him, blonde hair, blue, and he's like lusting after the white women after he mushed the face. And there's a lot of stuff like that. Now, in my own mind, I guess, could focus on the bigums, the blind racists, and I would focus on certain skits. But that reparations skit is a lot of anti-blackism, a lot of colorism, a lot of coonery, buffoonery in the Chappelle Show. As I revisited it 20 years or so later. So I'm like, wow. And my son's watching it, and he's looking back at us like, yo, mom, dad, what the hell what's up with y'all? And we were like, well, we can't call it. What do you want from us? We're only human. Flesh and blood, we're made. And he's looking at this stuff like this was the positive stuff. This was the righteous stuff. You know? So anyway, long story short, one day I really wanted to I'm just trying to hurry and get to the Rick James stuff. The Charlie Murphy stuff. Let me just get through this. Through all this first season 1, early episodes, man, bad. And I'm like, let me get to the Charlie Murphy era, the Charlie Murphy, Rick James. And I turn it on just before I get to that era after suffering through the early first season episodes. It's off. And I'm like, man, it ain't on here no more. Where am I? I was searching for it. I went to the search and I put in Dave Chappelle and all these damn comedy specials came up. No Chappelle Show. So I'm like, oh, whatever. Guess I'll go and watch Black Jesus. That's what we're watching now because they took Chappelle's Show away. We had to start watching reruns of Black. They're not reruns for me. This is my first time watching Black Jesus. That's what I'm watching now because they took away Chappelle's Show. But then a few days later, I hear Dave Chappelle had them take it down. And I'm like, word? Because they won't pay him. And then I saw an excerpt where Dave Chappelle is saying, I'm not telling y'all to boycott anybody. I want y'all to boycott me. He was asking for the community to not watch the Chappelle Show. I didn't know he made this request. And real talk, I wouldn't have honored that request. I wouldn't have wanted. If the Chappelle Show, if Netflix wasn't pandering to him, I'd be watching that right now. And let me tell you why. Number one, Dave Chappelle is worth $50 million. Dave Chappelle is worth $50 million. And he wants to come to the black community and talk about he needs to get paid. I ain't saying he doesn't need to get paid, but he don't need to be asking me to help him get paid. He don't need to ask in the streets to help him get that money. Go talk to your accountant and your lawyer and your stockbroker about that. money. Don't talk to the hood about that money. It's like King's son was telling Tupac when Tupac was wilding. You paid already. You paid already. What? Just the audacity. And here's another problem I have with Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle did this short talk. What was it, 47 seconds? He did this special. And I watched this. 8 minutes and 46 seconds. He did a show that was tied into the amount of time that pig stood on that black man's neck and asphyxiated, murdered him on camera. And in that thing, Dave Chappelle said he was mad at Don Lemon because Don Lemon said, where are the comedians? Why don't the comedians speak up? So Dave Chappelle got up and was like, I didn't speak because the community didn't need me. Because these artists and these comedians, a freaking comedian and rappers and artists really believe that there's only two positions. That if they speak up, they're leaders. So they're doing, Dave Chappelle in his own mind was doing us a favor not speaking up because that means he's a leader. That means he's out front. If he says something, that he becomes a leader. And he said he didn't want to take leadership. He wanted to allow us the privilege of leading our own movement and being out in front of our own struggle. And I would like to tell Dave, that's not how it works. First of all. Second of all, at the same time, he's like, we didn't need you to speak up about the damn, good morning. We didn't need you to speak up about your show either. That wasn't a need. Hell, y'all don't need Bro Diallo speak. What is the need? This is a collective effort. And we don't need you. I mean, if you're going to be that strict about it, it was just hella weird to me for him to be like, I didn't say anything because the community didn't need me. And then go back and wait. It's only 8 minutes and 46 seconds. It's really well received. But go and listen to the tone. Like he says, I'm not going to get up and get out front. I'm not going to take this over. This is the people's mind. He gives us the privilege of being out front of our own movement. And he steps back. And I'm like, if you can step back and be quiet about atrocities, why can't you be quiet about your own personal financial matters while you're sitting on a mountain of $50 million? And I'm saying, if you can add another 50 million on top of that, go ahead, more power to you. But you can't ask people out here struggling to do nothing or to even deny ourselves some of your corny ass skits. Like, why? Like, the way that all came together, but y'all find a way to embrace and to justify whatever these people do. Just didn't smell kosher, didn't look right to me. Because Dave Chappelle, he's a house nigga. And I know, y'all think Chappelle's woke? I just go, I'll repost my analysis of a house nigga and define what a house nigga is. And so I just don't like house niggas coming to field niggas asking us or telling us anything or asking us for anything because this class consciousness is just as important as cultural or race consciousness. But Chappelle wants us to speak up. And he's like on that JC stuff. My presence is charity. And let me tell you something, Dave Chappelle. You got two biracial sons. I've seen pictures of them. They got afros. They can be mistaken for criminals. And I'm sure you got $50 million, so your children are going to be driving around in nice cars and have the nicest clothes, and it might be some redneck cop. So when the black people are struggling, we don't need you. You're right about that. But you don't come out because you're needed. You come out not as a leader or as a spokesperson. You come out in solidarity. And I don't know why they think this is so damn hard. Look at Sheun. Sheun in Nigeria. He came out, he's in the streets with the people. He ain't there because the people need him. He's there because he needs the people. He's there in solidarity, not in leadership, not in dictatorship, not to bring voice to it. Because Sheun has African jive. who's going to live under corruption and oppression and neocolonialism if he doesn't end it. So I don't know where the hell these modern celebrities, what the hell they thinking, well, oh, I can't speak. I want to give the people a chance to speak. And then when they do speak, they would think they can take it over like Ice Cube. That you can speak on behalf of all of us and go to our oppressors and our enemies and speak on our behalf and represent us when you ain't even talked to us first. And then you don't even announce that you're going to talk to our oppressors. Our oppressors tell us you spoke with them. We got to hear from the enemy that you went to their camp to negotiate on our behalf. So they either step up and think they take, or they just play the back and keep it down. And Chappelle, and I can see, and Chappelle plays that because he came out hard against Trump. He said that Trump is a scumbag. In his most recent, a couple of weeks ago, he hosted Saturday Night Live, and he got up there and was like, Trump would, he talked about Herman Cain dying and all of his other staffers contracting the coronavirus. And Trump was out here parading around and giving disinformation about the coronavirus. And he said, what kind of man could have his closest allies and friends dying of a disease, and you're out here flaunting and flexing? So he's got a bad character. He has some very harsh words for Trump. But then you go back to 2016 when he hosted, he was like, give Trump a chance. He's our president and we just got to give him a chance. And people were even like, oh, Chappelle just endorsed Trump. And he's like, well, I didn't endorse him. I just was trying to play the fence. And I understand, Dave Chappelle. I'm not even mad at you. For some reason, he took his $50 million and he literally lives out in rural white Ohio in the middle of nowhere. And I don't know, usually $50 million, I wouldn't pay $50 million to live in the pit of vipers of rural white America. And he jokes about it. Maybe he moved there so he could have some content for his comedy. And that's another thing, man. We got enough wealthy blacks where they could create a black affluent utopia. I don't know why all these black folks with money go to Beverly Hills and all these traditional white places to be sneered at when y'all got enough money where y'all could go anywhere in the world and create a all black wealthy utopia and even keep us black folks out, us black rabble out. I don't understand it. I mean, that would be my first. If I got $50 million, after I stand up and lie and say I earned this myself, instead of being a parasite like every other, and start telling those lies about black success, and I would change my format from radical analysis to inspiration like Will Smith telling you to ask the universe for what you want. After I did all that, I would try to find other wealthy blacks and say, listen, I got $50 million, so you know I gotta have a helicopter pad on my home, I gotta have a yacht pull up to the dock in the back of my mansion. But I don't wanna go to the and go to where white folks are. So let's huddle up all us black richies and create black rich areas, like every other rich group does. Nope, they gotta crawl up white folks' butt crack. And I hate to be crass like this, but that's what I always see. Every time black folks get something, they go and contribute to the white racist tax base. But anyway, Dave Chappelle said he lives in rural America, white America. And he said when he walks in the grocery store, that the people he lives among say, hey, that's that nigga from the TV. Is in the grocery store. Oh no, he said when he goes to the grocery store, his white neighbor said, that nigga from the grocery store is on TV. And Dave Chappelle said he corrects him and said, no, the nigga from the TV is in the grocery store. Weird. But yeah, hey, weird. But hey, what do you want from me? And that's fine for you to do. But you got black sons. So the next time the black community is mobilized against an atrocity, or if you plan to join, don't worry and say, we need you. We don't need you. There's never a time where we need you. But you ain't there because you're needed. You're there because you want to be there. You got solidarity. You're not there as a voice of the people or a leader of the people. You're there in solidarity with the people because you got some multiracial offsprings who have as much potential, even more potential, because you got them in rural white America driving hot cars that the average cop can't afford. So your kids might even be more vulnerable to white aggression, macro and micro aggressions, and all out open white predatory atrocities. So go there for your sons. That's what we struggle for. Not because we need you, and you can't cop out. But like I said, he got to walk that line, because after he gets on the TV and talks slick, he voluntarily goes and lives amongst rural white America. And after hours, days ago, driving through rural white America. If I had $50 million, I wouldn't even be I'd be flying over it. I don't understand a brother that volunteered for that, but that's enough time. Let's move on. Stock market hit 30,000. Let's move on to the stock market. Guess what? In 19, and this is like, man, in 1929, on the day before the 4th of July, the day before the 4th of July, July 7, 1929, the stock market hit the highest peak it had ever hit in the history of the stock market. And by October that same year, the Great Depression, absolute crash. And so now we got a 30,000. And I can go into detail, but I'll just leave you with this Noam Chomsky quote. Noam Chomsky said, in a capitalist system, the health of the economy has nothing to do with the health of the society. So if you want to see how well the society is doing, the last place you look is the stock market. And if you want to see how well the economy is doing, the last place you can look is at the day-to-day common people. And capitalism don't celebrate the rise of capitalists in capitalism because capitalism concentrates wealth. It does not create wealth. Socialism, collective work, and coordination of human ingenuity and actions and resources that are abundant and renewable are the source of wealth. Capitalism is a system where they wanted to be able to take wealth from the workers and the masses and give it to the elites, to the monarchs, without it looking like theft. They wanted to give the illusion that capitalists earned their money. And the illusion is that the capitalists about capitalism is that the investor class, the Jay-Z's, right? That the Forbes, the DuPonts, the Rockefellers, the Bezos, the Musk, Elon Musk, that they take their ingenuity, their brain power, and their investment capital, and they put it into an idea, and then that idea just starts spitting out money. And y'all fall for it. We even got black, and there's some mad black folks now running the stock market, even though this has been the reality that 80% of all stocks are owned by what is called institutional investors. So even the stock market is a plantation for house niggas because the majority, the lion's share of the stock is in the hand of 8 to 10% of investors own over 80% of the stock. And so those are literally, they said, the only way that capitalism is going to survive, but when capitalism started, from mercantilism and liberalized economies up into the formal modern capitalism, the circumstances have changed. When capitalism first started, most people worked as sustenance farmers. They worked in agriculture. They didn't live in cities. And this is another key factor. There was not mass literacy. Most people didn't know. A lot of people would be born and die never having touching fiat money. They literally made their living by giving somebody a bushel of wheat and getting a crate of milk. You know, when you needed something, when you needed firewood for the winter, you needed to heat your home, you go and get trade some weld blubber and cut down some trees for heat in the winter. But as more and more people got integrated into the capitalist economy and through the first, second, and third industrial revolutions, and then they needed literate workers, so they needed mass literacy so that they could instruct and have the workers not destroy the complex infrastructure of capitalism. They said, well, the people are going to figure it out because they can read. So they started off running capitalism with brute violence. If the miners didn't do as they told you, bust their heads. If the women who worked in the seamstress made some noise, you bust their heads. If the farmers said they weren't going to bring their crops to market because the commodities traders are manipulating the price and they're buying the crops from them at starvation prices and then inflating, holding it back, and then flooding the market and manipulating price. So the farmer said, I'm just not going to bring my stuff. I'm not going to load up this cattle car with my grain because y'all playing games. People who never come to the farm making all the money while the farmers are starving. And they'd show up at the farm and burn his farm and bust his head. They were like, this is becoming inefficient because the workers outnumber us. So what they did is say, we got to give the workers the illusion of inclusion and participation. We got to give them the illusion that they can someday become capitalists. So the way we do this is we hand pick less than 1% of the workers and elevate them. And we say because of their hard work, ingenuity, not just good luck and being handpicked by the elites, they Jay-Z's and look, you could one day do. And then those people, those house niggas, or those class trader whites, would come up and be like, well, you know, I started off and I was born in a log cabin. My daddy was an illiterate miner and my mother stayed home with 12 children, and I worked and I studied and I became an industrial entrepreneurial capital, and now I'm a billionaire. And then the rest of us are supposed to look at that weirdo and be like, damn, word, I could do that. And so we toil away and we'll be 60 years old still grinding and hustle. I'm just opening my new business. I just want y'all to come out. Here's my business card. You want to buy some Mona V? You want to try Primerica insurance? While we out here doing these silly ass little grinds into our 50s and 60s, that one dude, like literally one success story in capitalism will last us a generation and a half. A generation and a half thinking we could do that too. We could do what Jay-Z did. And so that's one way. Another way is they opened up a small segment, like 10% of the stock market. And they started with the 401ks and individual investment accounts. And they started letting us poors and us little stragglers buy stocks. And I go on social media. I got a cousin who go on here and show his little stock crumbs like, yeah, let me show you something. And yeah, I just checked my account today and it's up. And I'm like, I ain't got no problem with that. It's like my cousin, you play the market and you get some extra money and you get to upgrade from single ply to two top ply toilet paper. Good for you. But that ain't got nothing to do with the power. That is not going to address the power dynamics. Our job is not to find a cushy corner of the cage. Our job is to break out the cage. Our job is to subvert oppression, not to see what spoils we can get from it. But anyway, all that to say, the last time the stock market hit unimaginable heights, less than 3 months later, it completely bottomed out and crashed. Mark my words. The stock market, even if you go to the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, when Trump came out and was like, stock market 30,000, he said it is blessed, it is holy, he said it is divine. He literally said 30,000. The stock market at 30,000 was a divine number. Without exception, they changed the name of this from depression to correction to recession to deflate, whatever name they give it. Every single stock market crash or correction, every single one without exception, was preceded by record highs. Mark my words. So we'll see if reality remains real. We'll see if reality remains real. But even, like I said, the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, the capitalist propaganda newspaper, are even telling people, fall back on that 30,000. They wanted to suppress that announcement. They didn't want it to get out to, because the people are like, word, stock market record highs, and so are food bank lines at record lengths, homelessness at record highs. So they be like, well, we don't want to flaunt. We don't want to be flossy. You can't have nice things when you live in the hood. And then since we turned the whole world into a hood, the world into a ghetto, we don't want to floss too hard on these. We don't want to stunt too hard on these hoes, because we might have a communist revolution on our hands. Got some non-believers out there. Biden is your president. Trump, poopy pants Trump has, see, here, let me tell you what Trump, I can't get into Biden, but Biden did announce that he's going to make gays, the gay agenda, his top priority for LGBTQ rights. He said he vows to pass LGBTQ rights legislation in the first 100 days. And I know black people, especially a lot of these black nationalists, about to get mad. Yeah, this is what we do for black people, blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you something. Biden is a neoliberal. And Biden doesn't, and Obama don't bang so hard on gays because they support gay people or they want to promote the gay lifestyle or the gay identity to the. This is why they come out and say words like middle class. I'm going to support the middle class. They talk about meritocracy. They support the military. They support LGBT. The reason why is because those movements are what Dr. Claude Anderson said. You got vertical movements and horizontal movements. Vertical movements are movements that apply to everybody. They cross all lines. So you have a line, Asian, African, or black, Caucasian, white, European. You have these lines that they have agendas, ideas, and values or desires specific to them. And then you have these lines that cross everybody. The reason why liberals bang so hard on LGBTQ, or I'll say gay rights for short, is because that allows them to advocate for justice while maintaining the status quo. Because you can give gay people all the rights in the world and it doesn't affect imperialism, it doesn't affect capitalism, it doesn't affect the status quo or the power hierarchies or the multinational corporations. And guess what? The black gay folks are going to, or queer people are still going to suffer from racism. The poor queer people are still going to be food and housing insecure. The undereducated or miseducated, but it's all the same. And then the poor working class, he's going to allow them to serve in the military. And the rich and the offspring of wealthy people who identify as LGBTQ are not going into the military. It's still going to be the poor and working class. So it gives Biden the opportunity to be a neoliberal fascist, a corporatist, while claiming he advocates for justice. And so you have some conservative black people that are like, they pushing this gay agenda on us. And then you have liberal and progressive black people saying, oh, right, you know, these a persecuted population is going to get some relief and opportunity. But that's why they have these vertical issues where I can advocate for something without threatening the status quo. Now, if you give Native Americans their rights and honor Native American treaty, that's disruptive to the status quo. If you give liberation to black people, regardless of our sexual orientation, that's disruptive to the status quo. But you got gay Nazis, gay white people, gay rich people, everybody, there's all kind of people that jump into the gay box. And so you're able to maintain in all those breakdowns, those class, racial, status, hierarchical breakdowns will not change if you gave gay people rights. The right to marry, the right to housing, because if you're going to get married, you got to pay for a marriage license. Marriage is now becoming the something for the middle class. If you have a right to, you have defense against housing discrimination. Still, if you gay and now we give you as much right to buy a house as a heterosexual person. So what? I'm homeless and impoverished. What that got? Giving me the right to buy a house don't mean nothing to me if I'm broke. You got a right to, trans people have a right to join the military. Right. And guess who? You're going to be right next to all the other poor people who don't have any other options but to go kill other poor people overseas for some basic opportunities in life. So I know y'all going to be like, but it also is a divide and conquer thing, because then poor black people can start to attack poor LGBTQ and black LGBT. Oh, they promoting this lifestyle and all this Judeo-Christian nonsense. And so everybody wins. The liberals get to pretend like they're for justice, and they get to see the people who they are tricking, who they pimping, who they exploiting, fight against each other over the scraps. Oh, you talking about he gonna prioritize? I already see it. Black people mad that he's prioritizing LGBTQ. But guess what? You ain't got to be mad that he's prioritizing LGBTQ. Because guess what? Your gay neighbor, your black poor gay neighbor, he going to be there. Even after Biden passes all that legislation, he going to still be broke, poor, struggling, oppressed in the hood right next to you. We really act like every time Obama or Biden come out and say, "Well, I'm going to prioritize the gay community." We really act like all of it, like a gay rapture. All the gay black people rise up and all of a sudden become upper middle class and go off to college and get all these benefits. As if you don't see the poor black gay people still struggling, homeless. They got higher rates of homelessness, higher rates of incarceration, higher rates of suicide, higher rates of high school dropout, higher instances of sexual exploitation and abuse and trafficking. But they really got us mad thinking that because, a neoliberal gets on stage and say, I'm going to prioritize first 100 days. So we about to start this whole thing up again, and this is going to allow demagogues like the irritated genie, wife beater, predatory stalker. It allows people like him to come out and rouse their base. So that's the thing. So, neoliberalism, they like to focus on the middle class, and they got this concepts of meritocracy and exceptionalism. It's all a hustle, and y'all fall for it every time. I'm sick of all this mess. Let's talk about what we're here to talk about. I did previous to remote broadcasts, I was criticizing Ice Cube and say not only is he's unworthy to speak on behalf of the community, and the only reason I say that Ice Cube is unworthy to speak on behalf of the community is he doesn't know what the blood clot he's talking about. He comes up with a very bad plan, and even if the plan was good, his method for executing the agenda was botched, horrendous, stupid, backwards. And so I didn't even know there was a Cube hive. I'm probably going to find out there's a Chappelle hive now. I don't even know these people. I know there's a Bay hive, and I found out there was a Jay-Z hive, and I don't even know that these people have fans like they do. I didn't know how, aggressive their fans are. There might be a Diallo hive out there. There is a Diallo hive. She's just walking back, pacing back and forth up here. I don't know what she's doing. So I got a one-woman hive. Not even my sons won't even join the Diallo hive. But every time I would get people, I even had to argue with some other celebrities about Ice Cube. And everybody said to me, what's your plan? How dare you? Why don't you be a leader? And everybody, so I'm saying these people who hate me have essentially elevated me to a position of leadership. Because after the 50th person says, well, what is your plan or what do you want to do? To me, that's a mandate. They want me to be hemorrhoid. They want me to be the leader. So now I am officially a black leader. Because every time I said, well, this contract with Black America is bunk. He's got this entrepreneurial revolution, and there's never been an entrepreneurial revolution in the history of struggle. There are always workers' revolution. This contract with America, if he got everything was signed on a dotted line and pushed forward, it would put us back. And they were like, well, what's your plan? I'm like, you want my plan? I'm flattered. Now, they say it in an aggressive tone. I really shouldn't be flattered, but I'm going to take it how they give it. So thanks to Ice Cube, middle-aged male groupies, I am now officially a black leader. Oh, I can just hear the love coming through the airways. Now, I got to do some things that black leaders do. What do black leaders do? Like Farrakhan, he's 90 years old and got jet black hair, so I got to dye my beard jet black and get one of those Sharpie type lineups where they take that jet that look like somebody drew your head. I got to do that. I got to get some funny suits. I got to develop a funny cadence too, like all the good talking cadences with like Jesse Jackson, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Farrakhan. I got to start speaking rhythmically. This is the Bro Diallo show. I gotta do black leader stuff. I gotta get some of them corny ass, ill-fitting, tacky pastel suits. I don't even own a bow tie. I got like neckties. But I'm about to do some black leader things, y'all. And it's your fault. It's your privilege to come under. So if you want to follow, Bro Diallo is now officially a black leader because I have had hundreds of people come to me and say, shut up, why don't you do something? So here I am again. This ain't my first time at black leadership. Like Dave Chappelle, The people don't need me, but I'm here anyway. Anyway, so I did a show where I talked about the problems. I'm going to go over the problems real fast because that was a month ago. Said the main problem: global warming and ecocide, nuclear weapons, resource exploitation, oppression, imperialism, neocolonialism, menticide, global white domination, capitalism, property, commodification and poverty, racism, anti-blackness, religion, and cultism. Now, you can go back to the previous show. I don't know why you're not subscribed to my YouTube yet. Why you fronting? Why y'all playing with me? Why you wanna play a hate on me? So go subscribe, and you can see, or you can go to the Bro Diallo archives. And when I put that up there, you can see where I went into detail as to why these are the major problems. And so I'm going to talk about solutions today, about grassroots practical solutions, things that could actually be done. It frustrates me when black leaders or public figures or even our scholars tell us stuff that is fantastical, that ain't about to happen, that would be great if it happened. So I want to tell things people can actually do, like from where you are right now. You know, these people talking about taking up arms against the U.S. These people that is like, oh, what we need to do is buy up the block. Like, what does that even mean, buy up the block? And it's really frustrating me because people with money to actually buy up the block are telling people with no money we should buy up the block, when obvious buying up the block is not a profitable thing to do, which is why, what does Jay-Z look like telling somebody to buy up the block? Because if buying up the block was a viable thing to do to get rich, then he wouldn't tell it. He wouldn't announce it. He would sneakily and go behind and create shadow corps and LLCs and buy up the block without telling anybody. I've been in the room with some millionaires. I know some millionaires. And the last thing a real millionaire does is tell you how to be a millionaire. They just don't share that. They don't share it. So whatever Will Smith and Jay-Z is telling you in public, don't listen to them. Because if they really want to tell us how to be millionaires and all that, you notice they all over social media, but when they go to meet with their stockbrokers, when they go to meet with their money managers, with their accountants, why not just set up a camera and let us listen to your conversation? Why are you sitting on your yacht with a Cuban cigar talking about, yeah, your dreams? You know, you got to work hard. When everybody's asleep, you got to be awake. You know? That one comedian dude told us, you know, you don't sleep and you're not supposed to eat if you want to be rich. You know, if everybody else is sleeping 8 hours a day, you sleep 4 hours a day. So anyway, I want to tell realistic things. Like there's black people out here, we need to go back to Africa, all go back to our motherland. Which part we all go? Which part we all go? Like, there's some good, and not that I'm not against it. People act like you're against black people having wealth. You're against black people going back to Africa. I'm against giving these grand ideas without a practical step-by-step process as how to get there. You know, trying to inspire black people to do something without giving them the practical steps. I'm to the point now where I hate inspiration and self-help. It's just such a scam and a hustle. But anyway, we're going to talk about solutions I propose for the community. The first thing, in terms of practical grassroots solutions, is ideological grounded actions. We need a coherent ideology, and anybody that comes to us to say anything what we should or shouldn't do has to give the ideological groundings for what they're proposing to us. And here is why. You can do almost anything, good or bad. What separates people who have liberation and power and freedom and those who don't is not the money, not how hard they work, not how intelligent they are. It's ideology. It's not their willingness to die for the cause or to kill for the cause. It is ideology. China ended colonial oppression because of sinocentrism. The Chinese people don't fight better. They're not smarter. They have a coherent ideology. And they were able, through a bloody process, to take a particular Maoist, sinocentric Maoist communism, their own. They took ideas from all over the world, from Western militarism to European Marxist Leninism to African communalism. They took ideas from all over the world and put them under the ideology of sinocentrism and then built. So once you have a founded ideology, you can use tools, instruments, methods, concepts, and philosophies, and even tactics from anywhere. But the problem is, if you don't have a cohesive ideology, you'll go and get tools, tactics, ideas from other places, and those will become your ideology. So even if you win, you lose. So if you got people like Killer Mike telling us to open banks, buy up the block, you got the INFAC talking about every black man get a gun. None of that means nothing. You could give every black man his own personal nuclear bomb, and it will not be an instrument in our liberation if we don't have a cohesive, functional ideology. So the first thing we need, and not saying everybody has to adopt this ideology, but when you have an ideology, you'll be able to better identify who are your allies, who are your enemies, who you can hold unity and coordinate with, and who you must shun. It will put you in a place where you will know how you must and can most effectively relate to everyone else. So if my ideology is capitalism, then I know no matter how cool I am, I can't rock with socialists or communists or anarchists. There's people I can't break bread with them. But I can get with conservatives, I can get with libertarians, liberals, neoliberals. There's a whole pocket, a whole population of people that I can work with, coordinate with, cooperate with. I automatically know who my allies are, who my potential allies are, who my active enemies are, and who my potential enemies are. And a lot of people come to us and they don't have ideology, or they misrepresent ideology. They warp ideology. But you can't even tell if they're warping ideas if they don't announce who they are. So everything we do, when Killer Mike tells us to open banks, based on what ideological groundings? Pan-Africanism? Socialism? Marxist-Leninism? What is the ideology? And I'm not even being dogmatic. Ideologies are not static things. Pan-Africanism of 2020 is different than the Pan-Africanism of 1920, but it should be some type of progression where you can identify the growth or expansion or the contraction or the divergence, whatever. It should be a line that you can follow, saying this is how it came to be. You know, guerrilla warriors and subversive. Saboteurs used to have a stick of dynamite. Now saboteurs sit at laptops to upend systems. So it's the terminology, the tools, but that's the first thing you need. And it's so important. If you follow me on social media, you see my tagline is ideology is all. If I don't know, you could be doing the most righteous stuff. You could be fighting for reparations. You could be fighting for housing. You could be fighting for black entrepreneurialism. You could be fighting for scholarships for black students. But if your ideology is integration and capitalism, all that good surface stuff is rotten to the core. I am a revolutionary Pan-Africanist. I am a revolutionary Pan-Africanist. That is my ideology, and everything grows from and feeds back into that. I am anti-imperialism. I am anti-oppressive hierarchies. I am anti-capitalism. I am anti-white hegemony. I am anti-dictatorship, demagogues, and cultism. I am secular. I am a humanist. I am an atheist. All of my ideas are very clear and rational. And when coming and everything I advocate for grows out of that and feeds back into that. So my actions will inform. My Pan-Africanism evolves according to what opportunities, what resources are available, or what resources and opportunities and is denied, whether I have 10 people organizing with me or 10,000 people. So it's not so, well, this is it. I'm not dogmatic. In fact, Pan-Africanism does not allow for dogmatism. But in order to be an effective Pan-Africanism, I have to be rational. I have to be skeptical. We have enemies all over the world. Because if Africa is liberated and African people across the world are liberated, a lot of powerful interest systems become upended. From the nuclear arsenals of our oppressor nations to the engines of their economy. All come from the exploitation of Africa's resources and Africa's people, of the continent and diaspora. So I know who my enemies are. Too many people come to us with good ideas, from reparations to education to owning our own business, and don't give us their ideology. And they can't announce it or be clear about it because they have the identical ideology as the oppressor. They're chauvinistic, patriarchal, capitalist, and they even are Eurocentric, Western, even some of the most Afrocentric organizations and cults. If you look at the core of their functioning, it is Western, paternalistic, Judeo-Christian. So without ideological groundings, it doesn't matter how good your ideal is or how noble your cause is. And if you don't believe me, go look at liberated Africa, neo-colonial Africa. So after you figure out what your ideology, how you envision the world, because all ideology is your vision for how the world is structured and the relationships between man and man, humanity, man's relationship to nature. That's what ideology is, basically conceptualizing how all things connect and relate to each other, priorities and values. Moving on. First thing we need to do. After that, second thing, the second thing first thing we need to do, yes, the second first thing, is local resilience and maximum utilization of resources. Too many times, Black leaders will come to us and tell people who are in dire straits that they need to step up and do this and do that. So a lot of times movements, I've been a part of those movements. We'll have people out protesting, people out organizing, people out advocating, people out struggling, and their lights are about to be turned off. They got some bug-infested cornmeal and spoiled milk at home to feed their children. And you know how people are. And you see a lot of brothers and sisters out here waving the R&B flag, and they're just barely keeping their head above water. Barely making it. I've seen people show up at food drives and they don't even have food. So you gotta make sure that embedded within your revolution is care for the revolutionaries. A means for revolutionaries to have their needs met as they go out and fight on behalf of everybody else. And I know we have this grand notion of the martyr. Malcolm X died for us. Dr. King died for us. Fred Hampton died for us. But I've heard so many stories that these same people who died for us, their families suffer afterwards. Lack of support and resources. You know, and I ain't gonna say no names because these people are still here, but I know African scholars, revolutionary freedom fighters, who we didn't have money to bury them. So what we have to do is any type of formation, whether it's your crew, whether it's a formal Pan-African organization, whether it is a massive group, you have to say, you know, if you come work with us, we ain't just trying to save the world. We're trying to preserve the people who are struggling to save the world and change the world. And we have organizations. I've been members of organizations where you have wealthy Black people well-to-do black people, well-secure black people, and members of their own organizations sitting at the same table, organizing and fighting together, and the people sitting next to them are housing insecure, and the person next to them owns 4, 5, 6 houses. But those two people are talking about, we're going to bring justice to the city. We're going to bring justice to the community. We're going to bring justice to the world. We're going to liberate our people. And yet in the same organization, sitting at the same table, you got somebody who does it, who's homeless, and somebody who has 5 or 6 houses. And so you ain't got justice within your justice organization, but you claiming you're going to go out and bring justice to the world. I ain't saying no names, but y'all know who I'm talking to. A lot of y'all. And who I'm talking about. So we need local resilience, internal resilience. We need a means, not just to motivate, not just to inspire, but take care of the psycho, emotional, and material needs of the freedom fighters. So when you sit down and conceptualize your Black revolutionary organization, you need to think, man, our people, even before we come under attack by the CIA, before we get infiltrated and bugged and you go through all the stuff, COINTELPRO, even before that, black people walking through the door, before they even get their first gun, before they read their first black book, they already have gone through a lifetime of oppression and racism. So they're coming to you with needs. That's where I call internal resilience, local resilience, and you deal with this by maximum utilization of resources. You need to identify the resources at hand. Find out where your what do you call your deficits are, and where areas you have abundance, and you reconcile that. You find out what are the needs of the people within the organization. There's so many black organizations that want to save the world and can't even save their rank and file members. That needs to end. That needs to stop with black organizations. Moving on. But maximum utilization of resources mean you have to do an assessment of where you are, the environment that you're working in, and see if there are things available, whether it's a plot of land in your community that can be cultivated, whether there's a person with a certain skill, you know, that you might have someone who knows anything from, can be a seamstress or that knows first aid. Now, there's certain skills, yeah, everybody wants, oh yeah, we got a brother who's a gunsmith. He knows how to shoot. He can train us all to shoot. But a lot of people in the organization need instruction on proper dental hygiene, you know. So you find out where your strengths are, where you have abundance, and where you have deficits, and you work to resolve those. That's before you step out on the street with a bullhorn. That's before you do your first march. That's before you even go out to tell anybody about the existence, before you come up with a website and a logo. Moving on, it has to be communal. The burdens must be shared. And you need camaraderie cultivation. You have to build connections, trust, emotional and physical and material bonds between the revolutionaries. If there isn't that interdependence, your organization is weak. If you only come together to do the work and then everybody goes their separate ways. And I know a lot of political organizations look at these social groups, these fraternities, and you look at The Art of Leadership by Oba Tashaka. He said that he needs his political revolutionaries to get with a lot of these people who organize these balls and these pageants. Get with these coaches who got these little leagues and stuff. You need to connect with these people because this is cultivation of camaraderie. You need to, like Emma Goodman said, I'm not going to join a revolution that won't allow me to dance. A lot of times, and I'm guilty of this, we get so caught up in the material and the struggle that we forget basic human needs. So you need everything from communal sports to other type of collective activities to build camaraderie, trust, connection. You know, you can't study together if you can't laugh and dance and cry together. You can't fight together. The military does this in a reactionary, exploitative way. But the reason why they strip you of everything, like the military has trillions of dollars. They could take every soldier and put him in his own individual dorm room. But they put them in a bunker and put them all together and make them lean on each other for a reason. You're not going to have an individualized or individualistic revolution. It has to be communal. So every time you need to be cultivating this concept, the idea and practices of sharing, cooperation, and communalism every day within your organization. And not just formally, but informal connections and communalism and camaraderie. Some organizations are really good at this. Some are not so much. Next, you need to emphasize intellectualism and radicalism. I can't stress any harder that revolution is an intellectual endeavor. We always recognize when the guns go pop, when stuff starts burning down, but revolution is ideological and it's intellectual. If you have the militant or armed element or activist element of the revolution without the intellectual guidance and structuring of your revolution, you're going to have a reactionary outcome. This happened throughout Africa, where you see people like Mugabe, or you look at the Congo, or even the Haitian Revolution. You look at any revolution that does not have a strong ideological or intellectual element, it always loses. That you can win the war and lose the peace. So you can drive out the colonizers. You can take the capital. You can overthrow and unseat the prime minister. That's all physical. But then, how do you prevent the traps? When the oppressors, you read Economic Hitman, John Perkins, before they would send in the military or send in the assassins and saboteurs, they send in the scholars. They send in the cultural leaders. They send in the anthropologists to study. And if they get defeated, they send them back again. They'll send in the military, and then if the military loses, what do they go back in? And they start to study again. So when they lose the war, they win the peace. That's why you have to be, and Bobby Wright told us, you're never going to oppress a thinking people, because the thinking people are a scheming people, are a plotting people. Now, an angry person, that's hard to sustain. A malcontent person, the anger and malcontent is good. But the only thing that you can sustain without injuring yourself, because I'm an angry person. I'm a very angry person. Negative energy abounds from me. I'm a negative energy type, chakras disaligned type dude, right? But that's not what sustains me in the struggle. Not my outrage and disgust of oppression and ecocide. I feel it deep. But what sustains me is my understanding. Because I can think without harming, without negative stress, without tearing myself down. So what sustains me in the revolution is my intellect, my rationalization, my thinking, what I understand about the conditions, not how I feel about them. Even though I'm in my feels, but that's not my primary drive. Then after you do all that, and you kind of have to do this in order, because if you skip some of these moves, you're going to be hollowed out. You're going to have some extreme vulnerabilities. And I'm not saying do this, then that, because in a revolutionary guerrilla condition, sometimes you have to do the whole thing. You have to, while you're training for combat, you have to be building camaraderie simultaneously. While you're meeting the needs of your individual members, you also have to be fighting against City Hall at the exact same time, or the local fascist police. So I know we don't have the luxury of saying, well, let's take a decade or two and build a, and no. A lot of these things could be done. So when I say you have to do them, they have to be in motion. You don't have to have succeeded or completed it, but it has to be integrated into the next step, and the next step all feeds into, and you can do them simultaneously. The next step is cooperative economics. If you're not willing to pool your resources with the people you're organizing with, you shouldn't be part of an organization. This hoarding, this stand, and that trust, I'm sorry. And I know a lot of people have an issue with that. What's mine is mine. We've been indoctrinated. That don't mean when you join an organization, you come and invite everybody to move into your house. Everybody gets a key to your car and a key to your house, and you give them your PIN number. That's not what cooperative economics is. It's like Von Donasiva would say, you trade in surplus. That's the word I was looking for earlier. You trade in surplus. So there should be a pool of resources that the people can tap into. And then everything you do, whether it's taking care of your group or expanding out into the community, it has to be cooperative. You don't open black businesses, you open black cooperatives. Everything has to be cooperative and shared. What we have to do under oppression is prepare for liberation. A lot of times, if you take the actions and start to function the way you want to function under liberation, it does a lot to erode oppression without even directly attacking oppression. So if African people start to live communally and cooperate, pool our resources in order to secure our needs, that'll happen. We ain't got to protest. We ain't got to march. We ain't got to march up and down the street with guns. That's half the battle right there. So we need to stop with this entrepreneurialism. I know we love that word, this myth. And it's just imitating white folks. That's the only reason entrepreneurialism. And I see all these pro-black people talking about entrepreneurialism. It doesn't matter. Hell, the oppressor will help you be and encourage entrepreneurship. They'll send you entrepreneurialism. They'll send you to their finest institutions of learning. Give you MBAs from Harvard because they ain't scared of black business. It's the ideology. Black business don't threaten them. There's never been a business revolution. There's never been an entrepreneurial revolution. Go study. It's workers' rebellion. When black people try to open businesses, whatever, they know they can shut that down with the Twitter. I mean, I've owned businesses. I'm not saying don't own business. I'm saying don't misrepresent what businesses do for us. I've owned businesses. I've had to go downtown, get a business license, go to the health department, get a license, get a sales license, and then have the health inspector come in and tell me you need a grease trap, you need this, you need that, you need a fire extinguisher, your refrigerator has to be at this temperature. Highly regulated. And I'm not against regulations. I that's why I can't really be an anarchist, because I support bureaucracy and regulation. Now, I'm a socialist, but I am not, as of yet, an anarchist. But I have some other issues with anarchism. The idea of it's great, but I'm not going to get into that because I want to. But well, I'm getting off it. But I've owned a business. I've operated businesses. I've had employees. It's all well and good. It's wonderful, to sustain my family. I've even negotiated contracts and sold businesses. But that's not, I don't want to misrepresent what businesses can and can't do for us. Cooperative economics can liberate us. Black entrepreneurialism will give a small fraction of the black community some opportunities and comforts that are denied to the rest of us, but it will not liberate us. And they keep telling us, white folks, capitalist white people even tell us, listen, black folks, even if you secure the bag, You know, they just James Brown's daughter died a year or two ago. She was homeless. Even if you secure the bag, it's not likely, it ain't no black equivalent of the Rockefeller family or the DuPonts or the Vanderbilts. So yeah, Jay-Z's a billionaire. But if global white domination continues and the patterns continue, his grandkids are more likely will be lower middle class, and his great grandkids could be impoverished. Right back in the Marcy projects, trying to get a wicked jump shot or write a fly verse to get out again. Because that's the cycles. And that's why they have no issue. They don't need a COINTELPRO to subvert black wealth. They can just go take it. But they do need a COINTELPRO to subvert black socialism, black communalism, black revolutionary formations. Because they're more resilient. And in the United States under capitalism, upwards of 90% of black people, you are going to die in the same class you were born into, which is working class, poor, maybe middle class. So it is more rational to engage in class struggle than it is individual struggle. It is more rational to elevate your class, to work with other members of your class to elevate the status of your class, than it is to work as an individual to elevate your personal status. It's more rational. And it's not as sexy, but the only reason it's not sexy is because it's not glamorized. You know, it just kind of blows my mind that in 2020 we still got this mythological Johnny Appleseed bootstrap entrepreneurialism myth going on, but it's very seductive. It's very seductive, but I need to pick up pace. I actually have a dentist appointment this morning. That's why I even have on pants. Normally when I broadcast from home, I don't have on pants. Now, let me stop talking. I'm not sitting here in a diaper like your President Trump. I got on pants. But I have a dental appointment, so I can't play with the time. Anyway, I digress. Next. Okay, yeah, we did it. Next thing we need to do. And these are things you can do right now today. Without reading a book, without picking up a gun, without growing dreadlocks or putting on a black leather jacket and black leather guns. This is just practical stuff you can integrate in your day-to-day life without even disrupting. You ain't got to leave your spouse. You ain't got to quit your job. You ain't got to go curse out your pastor and burn down your church. This is stuff you can do that will not risk your life, risk your jail time, or even risk your day-to-day comforts. And you can start to make real grassroots revolutionary change and improve not only your personal life and relationships, but improve our prospects for overthrowing the system of oppression. Next, you have to engage in agency capture of vulnerable institutions and organizations. Agency capture of vulnerable institutions, you have to say, there are a lot of, like, when I was in Kansas City, the National Black United Front, under Chairman Ajamu, captured the public school system because all the white people moved out of the city in the 80s. The school system was predominantly black. The school board was this sleepy position that was a low-level bureaucratic position that nobody ever paid attention to school board election. In a city of like 300,000 to 400,000, you might have 700 people vote for school board. So they very intelligently say, we could, burn down the schools. And it's like, wait a second. If we run a few school board candidates and position a few people and put up a couple of $1,000s, we could literally take over the school system. And it was like an 8-year plan. And they got one school, African-centered school. And then they got a grade school, and then a middle school, and then a high school. And then it came over, they were dictating education policy. And by the time the white folks got hip to what happened, the coup d'etat was already done. So there are certain industries, there are certain items or goods and services where there's a lot of black people. This is laid out somewhat in Powernomics, and I'm not encouraging people to follow the Powernomics model, but there are some good things that could be gleaned from there. So you look at where black people are present in numbers. There might be a college campus. There might be a spiritual community, a church, a mega church. There might be an economic district. There might be a public agency, the DMV, or whatever other type of government, low-level government agency, where 90% of the people there are black. And so you can get people and start to engage with those people and work to orient those resources towards liberation and justice. So agency capture precedes overthrow. And there's so many times where there are media resources, entertainment, infrastructure that black people, we are predominant in, but we don't exercise that power in our interest. You know, even your local Democratic Party. On the national level, black people have no real power in the Democratic Party. But on a local level, you can handpick candidates. And when the money comes down from the DLC to the local Democratic Party, you can appropriate those funds. You know, there might be a state senator, a city council member, an alderman that is receptive to certain ideas and views. Don't just show, he's Democrat, I don't work with him. That's strategy, tactics. So a major part should be agency capture of vulnerable institutions and organizations to orient them towards the interest of the community, the interest of the people. And if it is such a corrupt institution or organization, or if it's just too broad, or you approach the African, predominantly black people in that organization and they own some integrationist Uncle Tom stuff, then it's not doable. It's not a viable plan. Then move on. But it should be assessed what to be done. Again, when I was working with the National Black United Front, they had a strong coalition of black mosque, and black churches. And yeah, they was eating pork. And yeah, they was playing to colonial gods. But when it came time to secure the school, secure resources for the youth, to build up a supplemental education program, the churches were there. Because you go to any black church and you say the word education, they all pretend like they give a damn. You know, me, I'm an atheist. And the first farm project, major black organic agriculture, I got with the Moors. The Moorish Science Center. Y'all see how I go back and forth with the Moorish cult. But it was on one of the Moorish farms in Bonner Springs, Kansas, where we first started doing urban and organic black agriculture. So that was a revolutionary atheist basically engaging in agency capture of resources that came from a religious cult. You know, maneuvering. Next, I gotta speed up. Consolidation, conscious consolidation. You have a lot of divergent organizations, individuals, and missions. You got to see where you can consolidate and be more efficient. We have organizations in Chicago that monitor the police, and there's dozens of them. We got organizations in Chicago like Assata's Daughters and Jamu Medics, where they do everything from first aid to organized rallies. And if there's an organization that is efficiently doing something, then and you have a revolutionary organization, you don't have to, you can say, listen, you guys organized the protests, the marches, shutting down what highway or shutting down City Hall. You guys do. And so when it's time to do a major protest, we're going to give all our resources and follow your guide and coordinate that. But when it comes to urban agriculture, we're going to go work with this group because they got the land and they got the farmers and the know-how. And then when it comes to defense and security, that's when we're going to work with the brothers here. And so you coordinate and consolidate resources. Well-oiled machine. That's what, but if you don't have your ideological groundings, you might be working with an enemies and you'll be defeated, internal defeat. Moving on, we need an internal paradigm shift. What we value. Too many of our values overlap with our oppressors. Too many things we think have worth come directly from our oppressors. Too many things we neglect and say have no worth. So we do need internal paradigm shift. We do have to revolutionize our thinking and our internal relations. I know it's a bit redundant, but too many times we got, I look at black nationalist, Pan-African like Dr. Umar. And at the core of all of his ideas is Judeo-Christian chauvinistic nationalism. I mean, if your ideas are so that you take all the ideas of a white nationalist and change white to black, and then y'all identical, other than the white versus black, everything else you want, the black family and all this stuff, that's a problem. So we do need to, there's a lot of gunk in the black liberation struggle. There's a lot of contamination. Some of that contamination was forced on us. Some of that contamination we voluntarily brought into our struggles. So we do need internal paradigm shift. We can't make revolution in the world if we don't have internal revolution within ourselves as individuals and within our organizations and within our communities. Veganism, what more can I say? That goes with the ecological stuff. So in terms of discipline, I say that you could be a vegan today. It's affordable, it's accessible, and it's everything from chronic disease to environmental, reducing your carbon footprint, ecological, veganism. Moving on. I ain't gonna dwell on that too long because y'all like to roast me every time I say the V word. Pan-Africanism, which means everything you do has to be oriented towards globalization. If you're organizing in Macomb, Mississippi, south side of Chicago, your mind should always be towards what we're doing here needs to be transplantable. And we need to be working towards coordination with the African continent, the Caribbean, Africans in Latin America, and in other parts of the African diaspora. There must always be a mind. Our oppression is global. And what they often do is they'll come to the United States, the oppressor in the United States will say, fine, we'll give Negroes civil rights, and we'll move the systems of oppression that we take off the backs of blacks in the United States, and we'll carry it over to Africa. And then Africans say, oh no, we're going to decolonize. It's like, fine, we'll take the system of exploitation that we took from Jim Crow America, and we took it to colonial Africa, and now colonial Africa will take it to the Caribbean. Oh, now the Caribbean Federation, Caribbean socialists are rising up, we'll take it to Latin America. And every time they transplant oppression and exploitation, they refine it. And these places where they transplant the exploitation, it becomes a laboratory. It becomes a laboratory. Go back and listen to my previous shows. I talk about these laboratories of oppression, where they come up with methods and technologies. And then the next thing we know, we've been living free and being integrated and have our civil rights in America. And in less than a generation, we right back to mass incarceration and neocolonialism in the black community in the United States. And you'd be like, damn, how did we get back to that? It's because they went to Palestine, they went to the Congo, they went to the favelas and slums of Brazil and refined methods of psychological and physical containment and repression. And then they brought it right back to the hood to upend. The same techniques they used against the Black Panthers, they used against the MPLA, they used against the Caribbean socialists, they used in Grenada against the New Jewel movement. The system of oppression that we are under is globalized. And you see the low-level racist, well, America first, and waving American flags, these rednecks. But the real oppressors, the real, as wise intelligence, the real globe holders, the population controllers, the real elites, they don't give a damn about a flag. They see the world. They look at it from planetary perspective. They're going to control the world. They're going to colonize the moon and set up a base on Mars, and they're going to control all of that too. While they got you thinking you can't even look beyond your block. So we need a coordinated system of global Pan-African revolution in order to counter a global system of capitalist exploitation. And if they allow you to think, oh, black American slaves, and we can organize as black Americans, you've lost. Even if when you're a winner and a loser at the same time, because if everything you could ever desire is achieved, and you only achieve it for black people with social security numbers and U.S. citizenship, then the world is doomed. The ecocide, the colonization, the nuclear holocaust will proceed. So this is a global system of oppression which requires a coordinated Pan-African, globally united movement. We also need what I call ACL. This is so important. And I'm going to have to leave with this one. I can't get through my whole list. What am I thinking? The ACL is agenda-centric leadership. Right now, we have what is called charismatic leaders in the black community. Meaning that the person that talks the best, that can get the best following, that has the biggest name, becomes the leader. We have charismatic leaders, and they can rap and they can talk good. From Jesse Jackson, it goes all the way back. And in fact, I'm not going to say that. But it goes all the way back to Marcus Garvey and Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, the Reconstruction era. We need to get away from charismatic leaders and have agenda-centric leaders. And what agenda-centric leadership is that a person rises or is placed in a position of leadership based strictly on their capacity and competency to advance the agenda. And they only are allowed to hold that position of power to the extent that they are able to execute the agenda. And what determines their worthiness of power and their length in a position of authority is the agenda. And most leaders, their job should be to render themselves obsolete. So if I'm a leader in the founding of a movement, once the movement is established, you no longer need a founding member. You need a bureaucratic or operational leader. And then once that's done, sometimes when you're expanding to different regions or overseas, you need an expansionist leader. So as we erect and prop up leaders, or basically decommission or bring down leaders, not bring them down in terms of tear them down, but have them step down or move laterally to another position, it needs to be the agenda. So anytime you say this is our leader, or this is the person of authority, this is a chairman, you should be able to explain clearly and concisely why that leader is in that position. And they should be able to evaluate, listen, when this person came to our goal, this agenda-centric leader, this person was voted in, elected, or appointed chairman because we were expanding. We were here in Chicago, and we wanted to go down and set up a chapter in Springfield, set up a chapter in Joliet, and set up a chapter in Detroit. And so when this leader came in, you know, the timeline was 6 years. In the first 3 years, he's gotten, we're in Joliet, we're in Detroit, we're having trouble breaking ground in Springfield. So we're evaluating, you evaluate the leader. And the leadership, the position, is what exists, not the person. Whoever holds this position has to be worthy of it and then remain worthy of it. This leader for life, this all-encompassing leader, well, the leader, he controls the finances, he controls the logistics, he controls the media, he's the spokesperson. No, all those are different roles and different titles. I'm not anti-leader. And a lot of people talk, oh, we don't need no leaders. And I'm not with that chaotic nonsense. I think that leadership should be something that people work hard to earn. The easiest thing, the hardest thing to gain, and the easiest thing to lose is leadership of a black revolutionary organization or a leadership role. There should be multifaceted leadership and titles in a real Pan-African organization. Now, so agenda-centric leadership would be my last and final recommendation. Or in terms of grassroots solutions and everything. I mean, I could do just a 2-hour show on each of these individually, really going through details. But I wanted to say, you know, what would a revolution for real African people? For black African people that got to get up and go to work, got to tend to kids, sit down with their children to do their homework, prepare meals for their family, budget, you know, but they want to make a positive contribution to the just aspirations. These are things that any African can do from any walk of life, from any level of formal or informal education. You can even do this stuff while you were incarcerated. You can start to apply all of this. And I know there's not a lot of grand stuff like, yeah, we must bring down the system. We are Africans and we must be kings and queens. And none of that broad stuff, just practical stuff you can start today. After I put my outro music on and go off the air, we could do all of this right here, now, right today. And too many of our leaders got these grand agendas, unachievable ideas, because then they get to keep you where you are. They don't really want to advance you and liberate you. They want to keep you hoping and striving and praying, because then you'll always be dependent and look on them. Because the more empowered our people become collectively, the less empowered the individual leaders are. And the black leaders' number one goal should make themselves obsolete. Especially if you're a leader of a revolutionary or radical organization, the first thing you should do is work yourself out of a job. If you're doing housing work or you're doing food security work, the first thing you want to do is be like, nobody's homeless. Nobody has food insecurity. Work ourselves out of jobs. But anyway, Bro Diallo Show, Q4 Radio. I will be back here Monday, Q4, on the TuneIn app, q4.org, Q-U-E, the number 4.org. You can catch Q4 broadcasting across all platforms. You can catch Bro Diallo Show every Monday, 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, broadcasting out of the city of Chirac, state of Illinois, in the United States of America. Remote quarantine pandemic broadcast. You can also support the Bro Diallo broadcast. You can become a Patreon supporter. You can make a one-time donation. Go to diallokenyatta.com and you can support. If you don't have the loot or material resources to support, you can subscribe to my YouTube and share this broadcast with your allies, friends, enemies, lovers, and haters. And I will see you guys coming up. I'm going to be doing the book reviews. Like I said, I had an unexpected trip out of town. It's my first first time leaving the state, leaving the city since the pandemic. So I had to make a quick turnaround, 800-mile trip. And it wasn't easy, but I'm happy I did it. Shout out to Kansas City. Shout out to Chauncey. Shout out to all my supporters. I wouldn't be here broadcasting without you. Again, if you can, please kick in. If you can't, please share and subscribe. And with that, I didn't tell you, Get Flat, one of my favorite tunes. Every Posse Get Flat by the Blood Fire Posse was the song we started with. And we're going out with the Mighty Diamonds, Why My Black Brother, Why, Q4 Radio, Bro Diallo, city of Chirac, state of Illinois. Let's trying to fix the volume. All right, we out. Why, my black brother, why?